let's go for the best beef. These are kind of funny. We've got Collin Johns versus the net court, grandstand court versus high frame rates, Elise Jones versus standing upright, Johns Bros versus the Vulcan ball, and Rachel Rohrabacher's Come On versus pickleball noise complaints.
Ooh, some tough ones there. Tough ones. I'm going Colin in the net cord though.
I'm going Collin and the ball because like the ball is completely fine at this point.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, dollar has gonna yagi.
Guys, welcome to the show. Happy New Year. Today we have Jim Kloss here, who has quite the Facebook presence, the pickleball.com author as well. Jim, thanks for popping on.
Great to be here. Appreciate you asking me. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. So first and foremost, I have to ask, are you just Stephen A. Smithing some of this stuff? Like, are you doing are all of these takes that you have like 100% yes, I stand by that to my grave, or is there a little bit of enjoying stirring the pot?
A little of everything. When I got started doing it, which of course I completely and 100% blame on my wife for getting me started doing it. But you know, I'm I'm not interested in just vanilla opinions, whether it's me or anybody else. To read an article that says, Ben Johns played well, he's really good. I mean, absolutely true, but it doesn't do much for me. I'm more interested in, a hot take. I'm interested in a strong supported opinion, not a BS opinion, a strong supported opinion. I'm interested in somebody seeing something that I don't. I'm interested in somebody explaining something that I didn't see. And so when I come out with something, I'm just trying to do the same thing. I'm trying to point out something that I'm seeing that maybe somebody else doesn't see. I'm trying to explain, last March what I see with Zoe Wong and why I think she's going to be a really good player. And then she turns out to be the best player in Challenger. That's what I'm interested in. And so, I mean, there is a little Stephen A to it. Everybody, everybody who actually meets me is often saying, "Boy, you're a much nicer guy when I meet you," and I understand that. But it's a little bit of bombast, uh, just more to make people think, and to me, it's a little more enjoyable.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've said for a little while that pickleball, or at least at the beginning of 2023, that pickleball was ending like the kumbaya era. You couldn't find
Mhm.
anything negative about anybody, and it's not that we want to be like negative, but let's not all pretend like so and so played really well. The other team just beat them this day. Like,
Yeah,
no, you missed 15 backhand dinks. They broke it down. Like, we're gonna call it spade a spade. And pickleball lacked that, and it's nothing compared to the type of even the criticisms that you'll put on some of these players are generally, I think, respectful and fact based for the most part. You keep it above board with this is on court performance type stuff. You're not getting into like personal lives and all that stuff, which
no,
is where I think a lot of people draw the line. But it's also something that athletes from other sports have to deal with. And
sure.
for better or for worse, it's what people want to hear. But so yeah. Anyway, we have a bunch of stuff to talk about. We've got your year in review. We've got predictions for 2025. We've got a bunch of different pickleball news from Ben and Collin splitting up to the letters that are being by
Mm.
Kirk, and so we've got a good amount to chat about. But first, I gotta ask too, like, at what point did you? I know you've been playing pickleball for a long time. You've been around the sport. What point did you decide like, all right, I'm gonna stir some shit up in the pickleball floor?
Well, as I jokingly said, I point to my wife. Try to give the shortest version I can where it got started. I've been playing since 2012. Played an awful lot of tournaments between about 2014 and 2019. Kind of pre-COVID. And that was all. That was my focus. Um, Kind of post-COVID, with PPA getting started. We've got a couple of pickleball courts in my house. Playing in the morning. Um, and my wife would come in after playing pickleball and she'd flip on the PPA tournaments when they first started being broadcast and so on. And at first I would say, come on, we just got done playing 2, 3 hours of pickleball. And now you're going to watch 3, 4 hours of pickleball. And so I didn't really watch that closely. I'd be, reading a book on my iPad, whatever. The TV's though on, start to watch it. And, I was good friends then with Riley Newman. I'd be watching Riley play a lot. And what was striking to me was the lack of statistical analysis, either stats on the screen or a real analysis from the commentators. Not just, hey, that was a nice ATP, but what are you seeing? What are you seeing? Why is this mixed doubles team succeeding against that mixed doubles team? What are they doing? What are the strategies? And if you watch an NFL game, you're just stats, stats, stats. You can't look at the screen without seeing stats all over the place. So I'm looking at it, and kind of my background in statistics and analytics going back all the way to Bill James, the originator of sabermetrics with baseball. And I'm wondering, what are the stats? And so when I was watching, there were a lot of Newman Wright versus Johns and Johns matches, and what was it that was causing one team to succeed or fail? And what caught my eye were speed ups and counters. And I started to take a lot of notes, counting things, counting everything, missed serves, unforced errors, everything else. And I found the stats kind of be all over the place except for the speed up and the speed up success rate, and kept track of that. And so that's what led to the kind of the first thing I did on Facebook, was talking about the speed up stats and analyzing those Wright, Newman, Johns matches. And then Jim Ramsey, the statistician from PPA, kind of about the same time was looking at the speed up stat, and he did a great job of publicizing the importance of the speed up stats and tracing it to over a 90% success rate and predicting who was going to win a game or a match. And so, people came back in Facebook, and you get all kinds of responses, of course, when you're on Facebook, that as well as anybody. But, a lot of people were interested in it, wanted to see more, and kind of one thing led to another. And then eventually PPA contacted me and asked me to, the pickleball.com columns or commentary and so on. And, you know, that kind of got me started, and spread out from there, just trying to do what I could to try to um, explain the sport to the average player, explain the pro sport, but also to publicize it. The thing about the Stephen A. Smith side of it is, um, as you mentioned, it's never personal for me. It's strictly business, as they say in The Godfather. But I want to promote you guys. I want you to succeed. I want everybody to succeed. I want PPA to succeed. I want MLP to succeed. I want the players to make as much money as they can make, and whatever small contribution I can make from publicizing different things. I'm trying to do that too. Get fans interested. I love to go to the PPA tournaments. There's nothing like sitting 10 feet from the court, watching Jack Sock, hit a forehand. So trying to encourage people to get out there and go to the tournaments and see what I see.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've said this a couple times recently, but I almost wonder if the PPA needs currently like a Manning cast, meaning like you have different skill levels are going to watch this game differently. Somebody who doesn't know the game needs somebody to be commentating and explaining the rules. Somebody who's a beginner needs to be have a commentator that's at the beginner level. And somebody who's a hardcore fan is going to want these statistics and like deeper analysis that would go over the head of a beginner player or somebody who doesn't even understand the game. Y'all are catering to three different audiences here, which is tough because we're dealing with a sport that still not everybody knows. People know of it at this point. They don't know the general premise of it. People know tennis better, basketball or football a little bit, even though those games are,
Mhm.
I think, more complex. But they've just been established for longer. Or do you just say screw it? People are going to decide whether they want to figure out this game, and let's just cater to the core audience. And I don't know. It's an interesting question there, but I do think like at least in after the matches you can have different sort of analyses for this stuff. And so you mentioned as well that you were into the sabermetrics stuff, Bill James. Or I from my understanding, I thought you were a lawyer. Or
Well, none of us are any one thing, Zane.
all
So
right, fair.
yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
could say I was an accountant. So
long time lawyer. That's where the money side of it came from. But as far as just personal interests, Bill James is probably before your time.
no,
But
I read Moneyball. I read the MLP, the MVP Machine.
okay.
I love those type of books. Now I wasn't on Bill James' blog by any chance or by any means, but I'm up to date with him.
Well, if you go back even further, where Bill James started, he was derided in baseball as that guy working out of that security guard working out of his garage, which he literally was. His day job was a security guard, and then in his garage, he developed, the runs created stat and everything else. And he used to publish a book every year with his analysis of every player in the major leagues. And I was a buyer of that book the first year it came out. And
Oh, interesting.
boy, we're going back a long time when we get to that one. But that's where Bill James started, and baseball just derided him as a nut. And now basically everybody follows his basic tenets. And then the same thing happened in football with the creation of Pro Football Focus, and PFF.com now is huge, and all those football teams, with their analytics departments. But football, your first said, you can't possibly do a statistical analysis of 5 offensive linemen. But I heard the same thing about pickleball when I started, is people saying there's no way that you can statistically analyze it. Oh, it's doubles. Riley Newman hits that shot, but maybe it's his partner that lost the point and so on. You can't statistically analyze it. And I think both, again, to I'll deserve credit to Jim Ramsey for what he's done. I think Jim Ramsey and I both have shown that you absolutely can show statistically a lot of things in pickleball, but there is, like any other sport, there's art to it too, and there's seeing things that aren't necessarily capable of precise statistical analysis, such as the contribution a good teammate makes in MLP.
Sure, sure. Oh yeah, I mean, I do think like the the interesting stuff coming out with Pickleball Vision is a company that I like with for the shot level tracking of data. Like we at current state have summary level data with Ben from Real Clear Stats does a great job of it. He's
Great
more
job.
detailed than anybody else. He's working on his own sort of metrics of kind of a wins above replacement or
Hmm.
almost like a strokes gained type of analytic
Hmm.
with his player impact plus. But at a certain point, when you do have all of these variables, you can summarize what happens, but you also need a little bit more of which I think some of these companies like Pickleball or PB Vision are doing, where you can actually have shot maps of every single date hit, and you can start to recognize patterns of play in that way. Because
Hmm.
Ben from Real Clear Stats, it won't show you where that what pattern created a pop up. It'll show you who popped the ball up and who put it away, but it won't show you, okay, you went 2 cross court dinks and then a middle dink and you get a pop, right? It's interesting because like every stat you get, every time you get one stat, like we start counting winners, it starts asking way more questions, right? All right, how did you get to that position? All this stuff,
Sure.
So
Well, it's just a tool. I mean, the same in any other sport. Every NFL football coach they get notebooks full of stats on the other team, but that doesn't make every coach as good as Bill Belichick. There's always going to be a skill of watching a match, watching a player, analyzing what they're doing, analyzing opponent, and figuring out, well, what does this player do best? What is the other player's weak point? How do we attack the other team? And that's why I keep preaching is I'm just really surprised that every player, including you, doesn't have a bench coach every match. I just pro pickleball will have a day. The day will be here. I just don't know when it is. Every single player, every single match will have a bench coach.
yeah, 100%. You can be the smartest player out there, but if Rafa Nadal, Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic all have coaches, like there's no reason we shouldn't. And it's very difficult to take your own ego out of what's happening, right? And so you
Absolutely.
see the court through your own lens, and you can be the most perceptive and adaptable player out there. But the person on the sideline is going to be watching for patterns a little bit better. Um,
Mhm. I know
so
it for
yeah,
myself. Whenever I watch myself on a replay of a match, I am screaming at the replay, at my image. I am just screaming at how stupid I am out there. How can you have done that? Why aren't you I always think I'm bending my knees really well. And I'm watching this and going, well, bend your knees.
where
Even
can
something
where
as
can
simple as that.
where can the viewers at home find some gym class footage that they can leave their own commentary on?
Oh boy, I don't know. I did have one friend do that. Somehow found everything on YouTube from my different matches and did a compilation only of misses. So there's a whole YouTube compilation on gym class misses in tournaments.
Oh, I think I might have just found that.
Oh
I think
geez.
it's gym class pickleball lowlights from 4 years ago. That might be it. I just looked up gym
Uh,
class pickleball, and you got a couple on there. But
yeah.
interesting. All right. So getting into some of the current news. Basically, the big thing over the break was the split up of Ben and Collin, which I think not too many people are actually particularly surprised by. Obviously, the surprise is more of the interpersonal relationship between Ben and Collin, as opposed to people thinking that Collin is absolutely the best fit to be playing with Ben. So take us through what's your opinion? Why they split and who's Ben playing with in 25?
Well, the whole Ben and Colin drama, if you will, goes back quite a ways.
It goes back
Um,
to Matt and Riley kicking their butts over the summer of 2023.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there was a time where, and I got razzed a lot for it, and somewhat deservedly so. But there was a time where I said Riley was playing better than Ben, and people forget it. He was playing better than Ben Johns. It was shown in the results and it was shown in the stats. It wasn't a long period of time, but there was a time there, and
What
But
time
I
was
think,
that? What time was that during that period of time where Matt and
yeah.
Riley were beating Ben and Collin?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily use the term beating them, but they were competitive with them. Sometimes they beat them, sometimes they lose. It was more like, I thought of it more like a Bright Rohrabacher versus Parento ALW situation, where Parento and ALW still have the advantage, but Bright and Rohrabacher are very competitive with them. A lot of 4 or 5 set matches and some wins, and that's what Newman and Wright were doing. Is they weren't necessarily beating them more than 50% of the time, but they were right there with them. A lot of 5 set matches, a lot of great matches, and some wins. And
Yeah,
it was,
they beat him 5 or 6 times that year though, didn't they?
yeah,
Or they won 5 or 6 tournaments all against, Ben and Collin. But I think they were, like,
absolutely.
maybe even in the,
Or maybe,
head-to-head
yeah.
or close to it at a certain period of time.
But then you start looking at it and try to say why. Um, you know, Ben was regarded as the best player. Well, why? And again, I'd use it the analogy to the ALW Parental matches against Brighton Rohrbacher. ALW clearly the best player, but they're getting beat a third of the time. Why are they getting beat a third of the time? It ain't because ALW's not still the best player. And at that time, what was the dynamic? But that sort of started people talking and started people talking. And at that time, I was a very big defender of Collin. Um, the game was different. The paddles were different. The ball was different. It was a different game. And the match I always refer to, and I referred to it in my pickleball.com column, was you and Eric Lang here in Phoenix, that mixed or that men's doubles bronze medal match against Alshon and Julian Arnold. And I did the commentary on that. And that was a total eye opener for me. You guys came out, uh, you drove the ball 105% of the time, and every point was shake and bake power. And Julian Arnold and Christian Alshon, really good players with
Very
some
aggressive
pop
players
themselves.
too. They're probably
And
known as some of the more
yeah,
aggressive
yeah,
players as well.
and you guys ran them over like a truck. And I was like, wow. And what I saw was two players recognizing the potential of the combination of the paddles and the ball. And everybody else was playing 2023 style, and you guys played 2024 style. And um, from that, I think with Ben and Colin specifically, is it took a while um, for whatever reason, it took a while for Colin to adjust his game to that. I don't know if he was slow to recognize it, which I doubt. I mean, he's a really smart player, so I have trouble believing that he was slow to recognize it. If I was seeing it, I assume he was seeing it, but he was slow to change his game. And as 2024 went on, and again, it's reflecting the statistics, he went from a player who almost never drove the ball to a player who's driving the ball a very high percentage of the time. He went from a player who rarely did a speed up. I'd chart many, many matches of his where he had 0 speed ups in a game, to a guy who's doing 3, 4, 5, 6 speed ups in a game.
And
Um,
still probably
and
not quite enough.
well, it's still not his forte. He has no backhand speed up whatsoever. And he's never really had to have one. There's, again, matches I've charted where it surprises people to hear this, but he has games, if not matches, where he hits 0 backhand shots off the bounce at the
That
kitchen line.
that doesn't
0.
surprise me, yeah.
Yeah, because Ben moves over, or Colin can move slightly left and take it off the forehand. You and Tyson both do that right side backhand, take it on the fly on the shot to the middle. He does not do that shot. Um, and so it's all, is he going to speed up off the forehand? And when you're limiting yourself, a smart player on the other side is going to know that. And so he has trouble generating offense. And that's what developed, and that was why I did an article in July, where I finally said, okay, I switch. I was in the defend Colin column, and now I switch and say Ben needs to change partners, because he needs somebody to play 2024 style. And Colin tried, but at least to this point, I don't think he's there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, at the point of July, you could chalk it up to a couple of bad tournaments. Like, they had a couple of wins at the beginning of the year, and then around March, they lost to Christian and I, and that's also kind of when they start to go on a little bit of a slump until they turn it around halfway through the year or so. So it wasn't like it was a completely horrible year for them, but just not
No.
the level of dominance that they expect. And I think not the level of dominance that Ben probably still deserves. I do think that in my year end recap, I mentioned that, or when I'm in my analysis of their split, I still think that Ben is the best player on average. However,
Mhm.
if Ben has an average day, Ben used to be able to have an average day, and he would still be better than the other players for the most part at their best days. Right now, if Ben has an average day, there are probably 15 players who, if they're at their best and Ben is average, are better than Ben, right?
Yeah. What I said is, I did a top 20 men and top 20 women list, and I said he's still number one, but the gap's the smallest it's ever been. His days of dominating with many triple crowns are over. Especially in singles, his time as number one is coming to an end, but not just yet. And then in my predictions, my one prediction about him is 2025 is his last year of being the consensus number one player. 2026, I think we're either going to have a new number one player, or there just won't be a consensus as to who the top male player is.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it'll be. I think it'll be a lot more difficult to know. Obviously, you'll have rankings still, but as the game gets more and more competitive, like tennis, it's so much more difficult to be a completely standout player. Um, that's just how it goes as sports mature. But who are you betting on as Ben's partner going forward? We know Ben and Collin are playing the Masters together. Um, yeah, who? So two questions. If you're Ben, who are you picking, and who do you think Ben will pick? So two separate questions.
Well, taking reverse order, and the news has been publicized that he asked Tardio to play with him, um, which is very very interesting. I do wonder about. I mean, I know a lot of you guys pretty well, but I don't know everything about everybody. I do wonder about the interpersonal dynamics where Cardio and JW are supposedly set to play 2024 together, and then Ben splits up with Colin, and Ben goes to Tardio and says, "Hey, I want to play with you." I'd love to hear the conversation between Ben and Gabe, and then the conversation after that between Gabe and JW.
I can't imagine the conversation between Gabe and JW is particularly interesting.
Well, you know, uh, it would be there's a lot of those memes of pickleball about JW and his demeanor. It'd be interesting to have seen his demeanor when he gets the call or the text or whatever from Gabe saying, "Hey, I'm gonna instead of playing 20 together, can we just play 10? Because I got this other guy that wants to play 10 or more with me this year."
I would like to
Um,
see J-Dub pissed sometime. I would appreciate that.
yeah,
So I thought that there was also some speculation about Max Freeman.
somebody wrote that. I don't see that. I see Ben as more interested in um, a more established player. Um,
He doesn't need to take a flyer. That was what surprised
yeah,
me as well. I didn't know where that came from, but Ben has his pick of the litter still, right? If
yeah.
he's able to
I'm
pick
putting
up,
I'm putting that down to rumor.
yeah, okay.
I think no, my list for him is more of the recognized solid right side players who can supply some offense. If he was healthy, Thomas Wilson, I think would be a really good pick for him.
Yeah.
And again, here's hoping Thomas gets back to 100%. I think we're all better off, and the PPA Tour is better off when Thomas Wilson is part of it. So, but Thomas Wilson, I think, would be really good. I think Alshon would be really good. I hear there might be some personality clash there that I'm not 100% privy to, but feel
Hey,
free to
look, if
enlighten
Matt
us.
and Riley can set aside their differences to play together, I think Ben and Christian can too.
But all those rights. He would do well with Dylan. That's not happening, but he'd do just fine with Dylan. A lot of people speculate on him playing with a lefty. Um, I actually don't see that as much.
I think
You
that
don't get the
they
same benefit when he's doing such a dominating presence in the middle. What are you adding when you add another forehand to the middle with him?
No, I completely agree. I mean, he did. I think a lot of people are speculating that because a little while ago he came on the podcast and said that he thinks that the future of pickleball will be righty lefty long
Right.
term. I disagree.
Yeah.
I It could be righty lefty. I have a very contrary opinion that it'll be righty lefty with the forehands out. Um.
Hmm.
Anyway, like the offense right now is primarily coming from the wings, right? When you are able to hit the ball from outside somebody, let's say I have a forehand out wide and I can go down the line, I can go into their chicken wing. The wings are what is giving you some angles to attack, or you go from that same position hard cross court angle. I could actually see a world where you have forehands out because it allows you from the wings a little bit better. Obviously, then you hands in the middle, maybe they target the middle, but you also have players like Christian Alshon on that right side who is really good at coming in there and poking with his backhand from the right. Um,
Hmm.
I could see two if you had a Christian Alshon on the right and a lefty Christian Alshon on the left, it's going to be a very strong combo.
Hmm. I'll have to
Uh,
think about that. I still think it's righty righty, because um, especially with the way the game is going, I think there's a real emphasis today that there wasn't in any prior year on finding a safe zone. It's really important to be able to find a safe zone at your guys' level. And I remember
Like a
talking to
bailout
Dylan.
spot, basically.
I remember talking to Dylan at one tournament, and I told him, my theory that everybody at some point is going to be hitting a two-hand backhand, at least for some shots. And I said, "Where are you with it?" And he just smiled. He says, working on it," because he doesn't. And we talked about it a little bit, and his take was exactly what I thought, which is I don't want to have a safe zone in my game. And I do think with righty lefty, what you have is um, the opponents are easily able to remember just hit the ball outside. Because if I hit it outside, I'm hitting it to a backhand. And even if your opponents are getting a little more offensive off the backhand, it's still a backhand versus a forehand. And I don't want to give them that easy thought of just hit the ball to the outside, focus on hitting it to the outside. Just as with your theory of two backhands down the middle, I don't want to give them the easy thought of just middle, middle, middle all the time. I think with two righties, especially with somebody like Tardio, who's got his left foot planted on the center line or even across the center line, um, you're hitting an awful lot of shots to the forehand on the other side, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, with cardio, it might be an interesting dynamic to see how much court he's going to play. Right now, he really likes to play, even with big guys like Andre. He's planted in the center of the court. That'll be an
Well,
adjustment for both Ben
yeah,
and Gabe. Like obviously, they're high level competitors. They'll adjust, but that'll be interesting.
well, it depends who you play with. The scouting report on Diascu was always dink him middle because he's not very offensive off the forehand. I did notice that Andre, toward the end of the year, started to do
Forehand
some
speed
speed ups
ups.
off the forehand, which he did not used to
He's
see.
very good out of the air from that forehand. He's got a lot of options. He doesn't typically speed up as much off the bounce. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he kind of backs up and does a little bit of a simple scoop, dink back. But he started to add that. JW is another one who used to never do a forehand speed up off the bounce, now started to add it. It's not something that Ben does a whole lot. I would still, if I was him, I would accept that, let Tardio be Tardio, and let Gabe move over in the middle, and let Ben be dominant, but not 70% of the court dominant. But
Yeah.
it'll be really interesting. I think 2025, one of the best things about 2025 is the change of partnerships.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I really advocated for PPA. I want to do the PPA finals as a shuffle draft. I think we really need a shuffle draft event for you guys, and that
I
would be
saw a
so
pretty
cool.
interesting, very interesting tweet or something or another. Somebody said that there should be one event per year where the partnerships are crowdsourced. I would absolutely love it. Can you imagine? Like, I mean,
Oh
it's a great
man.
way to get people engaged. Um, but yeah, I
Would people play, or would they drop out? That's what I'm worried
doesn't
about
matter that
because I
we can have, there could be stipulations and there are a certain amount of events that we have to play, right? So
right,
you have to play the cups, you have to play the majors. Do it at one of those.
right. Well, I'd like to
Hey,
see one
but
of the
Jim,
cup events be a shuffle draft.
I'd like it to. Just I like to see things mix it up, right?
Mhm.
But before we go into 2025, let's do a quick recap of 2024. Uh, Thomas and the Dink have put the Dink Awards, which is powered by Nike, which is a pretty badass sponsorship for this. So
Mhm.
if you don't mind, let's go through some of these categories and get
Sure.
our votes on the Dink Awards. So, men's player of the year, we have Ben Johns, Hayden Patrickren, JW Johnson, Christian Alshon, and Federico Staksrud. Who's your vote?
Um, well, I mean, you and I have talked about this before. We talked about it like with MLP, MVP, and as always, it depends a little bit on your own personal definition. For me, I'd vote for Staksrud because I think he was. You can make an argument that he had the best year of anybody. He was super consistent at singles. I think Ben had a fine year for Ben, but just a fine year. I think Staksrud had a really good year for Staksrud, and both of them. I don't know if you saw it, but Matty Pickles put out those
Oh
charts
yeah, we
about
love
total.
Matty Pickles. We love
Yeah,
the snaps nerds.
great stuff. Great stuff he did. A lot of kudos to him on the charts that he put out. But the chart he put out on, for example, medals won in each event, and so on. Staksrud was right there with Ben. So I'd give it to Fetty.
Yeah, I actually would as well. I mean, just the fact that he medaled in every single tournament he played is a completely wild statistic. And when you look at the weighted average, you get 3 points for a gold, 2 points for a silver, 1 point for a bronze. Fetty actually outscored Ben in that metric. That obviously has a lot more gold medals in doubles, but man, Fetty also won all 3 of those tournaments with Hayden, which I think we'll expect to see some more of next year. And then I think Ben underperformed expectations as well, and Fed way outperformed expectations. And I think with an even-ish weighted medal count, I think you have to give it to the person who exceeded their
Yeah,
expectations. I mean, I'm voting
I'm
for
with you.
Fed on that one as well. Women's Player of the Year, we have A. Catherine, Anna Bright, Rachel Rohrabacher, and Georgia Johnson.
Hard not to give it to LW off of that list. I mean, the only other one that I could even start to make an argument for, I think, would be somebody not even on the list, and that's Kate Fahey. Just from the standpoint of sort of rags to riches.
Uh-huh.
At the time of the MLP draft, which I think was in March, if I remember right, I knew who Kate Fahey was. Um, I did not know who Kate Fahey was in January, though, or December of 2022. And for her to go from unknown, unknown by everybody in January, unknown by 95% of the people at the time of the MLP draft. There were so many people who texted or tweeted, Kate who? when she was picked. And look where she ended up. I mean, just an amazing year for her. She'd be the only other one I'd really consider, but I got to give it to ALW just because of the sheer dominance.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think AL is just clearly dominant. And to play devil's advocate with Kate, obviously, incredible singles player, but hasn't quite had incredible doubles results. Right? I mean, she's been solid at doubles and not getting necessarily the partners that are going to take her to regular medal stands. And you could say that Anna carried her, which is not entirely true, but I think partially true. Right? Does Kate have the same sort of MLP success without Anna? Certainly not. And she
Oh,
didn't have very much NLP success in mixed doubles, even with Gabe, who's playing good ball. But Gabe, obviously, probably known as a better men's doubles player at this point as well. So I think if you're looking at the whole picture, you give it to AL for sure. So yeah, I think Kate is somebody to, and obviously we'll get to the predictions too, but Kate is somebody that's only improving. Uh, Men's Senior Player of the Year. Seniors have not gotten nearly as much publicity this year, but we've got Steve Deacon, Jamie Onsens, Dave Weinbach, Altoff Merchant, and Scott Moore. Who you got?
um, you're very much right. It wasn't that long ago when seniors were a big thing, especially pre PPA. If you go back, say to nationals, 2018, 2019, um, the senior open was a big was a big deal. Today, it just doesn't get the same love, doesn't get the same publicity. Um, it's always hard to go against. It's a little bit like the PGA Tour when the guy who hits 50 is pretty dominant. So Deacon comes over and right away he's right there as the best player.
What is
So I'd
Altoff
probably
carrying him?
all tough's up there. I mean Deacon's got some good mixed results too. I think better than
Oh, yeah.
all tough. I'd
Altoff's a
go
one.
one.
Sure.
I'll go 1-2 on. I'll go 1-2 on them Deacon Altoff. If you want to go 1-2 the other way, I'm not going to have a serious disagreement with you.
No, I'm Altoff all the way. Tucking in the hoodie, baby. Tuck it in. Full tuck. Full tuck. Altoff Merchant.
Yeah.
Have to give it to the Mumbai Monster. That's my vote. You can have your reasons. I don't need reasons to vote for A class. I'm just gonna vote for him. All right. So for women's senior player of the year, we got Lee Whitwell, Angela Simon, Beth Bellamy, Natalie Bagby, and Sherry Quarter. Honestly, not super familiar here. I'll let you leave this one. I know Lee Whitwell, of course. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened. I only follow senior stuff because I'm close with Deacon and close with Altoff and Dave. Like I played a lot with all those guys. Uh, I don't know really anything about the senior women's game at this point.
Well, Whitwell was pretty dominant, so I'm going with Whitwell myself.
All right, I'll tag on with you. Lee Whitwell it is. All right, so now we get to some other interesting ones. We got men's most improved player. We've got Kwang Dong, Will Howells, Gabe Tapio, Agiga, and CJ Klinger. And you can kind of make an
Wow.
argument for any of these guys. So I'm curious what you're thinking.
That's as you were reading the list, my exact thought was a good argument for every single person. So I wouldn't I wouldn't disagree with anybody voting any of them first. A lot of it just depends on kind of what you're looking at, where you think they started the year, where do you think they finished the year, um, where do you think they're at. Um, Personally, I would take my controversial MLP MVP Will Howells. And the reason I pick him again, I think it depends where you come from. So where I come from is, where was he on the radar screen at the beginning of the year? Where do I see him in terms of top 10, top 20 now? So I'd probably have Augie second in that regard. But to me, Will just came out of nowhere and just showed a lot of game to me. I mean, people point to what he did with ALW, but I don't know that everybody,
It's far
has
more
that record
impressive
with
what he
him.
did with me. It's far more impressive that he was able to
Yeah.
carry me to above 500 level.
I wouldn't say he carried you by any
No,
means,
we
but
meshed well. We ended up figuring
I
it out.
think his men's doubles record was the overlooked item. You guys had a very good record, and you're talking about um, I forget exactly what number you were picked, but somewhere in the 20s,
Yes.
and he was picked, I think, 39th, if I remember right. So I mean, you're playing against teams where sometimes you're playing the first and second draft choice for
Yep.
a team.
Andre and
So
Dylan or yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
no, yeah, I agree. I first off, I think that Whittle should have been MVP for the uh, for MLP. When you look at it at a cost per play impact or per win, he's one of the best there. Obviously, with the exception of the people who went for like $1,000. Matty Pickles also did a nice graphic on that
mhm,
on dollar cost per win. Yeah, value. I define value as what you get for what you paid. I think that's often conflated in sports with best player, which I think should be two different things.
yes,
Honestly, I think we agreed
yep,
on that as well.
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
take
MVP
Will.
versus Player of the Year.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think if you're looking at this as who improved their duper the most this year, if that's like Will is hands down the best there. But also you could go from Gabe went from a pretty average player, pretty average pro player to the best right side guy who's getting picked up from Ben. So I think like for me it's gonna be probably a Gabe in that second position. Then again, you got CJ who again went from some success at APP and pretty no offense, like run of the mill average player to again beating back like very well in MLP. Not quite the same, obviously, success that Gabe has enjoyed. So if I'm ranking these, I'm going Will Howells, Gabe Tardio, CJ, Huang, Augie. Augie was kind of a known commodity who still didn't have, I think, incredible results at PPA this year. Obviously, won MLP with J-Dub and Georgia and Tyra. Not to say that he wasn't a hugely improved player. I'm playing a tournament with them at the beginning of the year. But I think when you compare him to these guys, that's how I'm doing these rankings.
Yeah, I see it a little bit different in that at the beginning of the year, where was Augie? Where was he in January? Because he's another one, that same tournament where you and Eric won that bronze. He and Tyra had that really nice run. Some great wins in mixed, and the reaction of most people was Augie. Who? How do you pronounce his last name? Augie Gee. um, and so I have him as very, very improved from the standpoint of he started so low in January. And now I think I ranked him about number 15. So that's a pretty impressive move up. As opposed to, Tardio, he was, a reasonably high draft choice in March in MLP. It wasn't like Tardio started way down low. Same with Hayden. Hayden was a second round pick. So they didn't have as much upside because they were already regarded so well.
Yeah.
Certainly, definitely both improved a lot. But that's why I'd probably have Augie a little bit ahead of them. But I'm sticking with Will. And Will
100%.
also, I have to say, Will told me he was the most improved, so it must be true.
Will's never wrong. All right, women's most
Will is
improved.
not lacking in confidence.
That's for sure. I love Willie. Women's most improved, we've got Mari, Kate Fahey, Tina Pisnick, Caitlin Christian, and Hurricane Tyra.
A lot of good choices there. I wouldn't necessarily have Tyra in there, but that is not an insult to her, because I would have started the year with her higher ranked. Um, to to me, I didn't see. I wouldn't even I would not have her on this list. She doesn't stand out to me as a player with real significant improvement. In fact, I sort of saw her the other way as somebody more plateauing.
I think some recency bias. She has had a very good end of the year and started to play very well in women's doubles and better in mixed doubles as well. I think, yeah, there's probably some backwards progress at the beginning of this year. Stops playing singles where she was also obviously incredible. But I think towards the end of the year she started to become a threat again for sure. I
Yeah,
mean, if
yeah,
I'm
she
voting
teamed
here,
well with Elise.
I'm going
She teamed.
Kate in this one for it.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I have to give it to Kate because she's starting so low and finishing where she did, and we can have a little bit of a difference of opinion on how high she finished. But Fahey, Caitlin Christian, she definitely improved, but I didn't see as much from Caitlin in doubles as I was expecting to see.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I think we got a decent chunk of these more, so we'll go a little quicker here. We've
Okay.
got Rising Star, Alex Strong, Lane Sleeth, Jack Monroe, Eric Unseen's, or Noe Cleese.
Noah's my man.
No, he's your guy. I've got
Oh
Jack
yeah,
Monroe. He's my dude. That's gonna be a good breakout next year for Jack, and he's playing well in MLP, playing well at APP. Unfortunately, it sounds like we're not really gonna see him too much at against the PPA
bingo,
players. So
bingo.
tough
Yeah,
to sort of break out there when you're not playing against those guys.
yeah, yeah. It's like being the best player in AAA baseball.
Yeah, no
It just
offense to
doesn't get you
anybody.
very far. Well,
Um,
I, tell it like it is.
You're not wrong. At least that's how people see it. Like, obviously, there's really strong players in APP, but like right now, it's seen as the elite in pro pickleball. For better or for
Well,
worse.
because it is.
Well, yeah, you're not wrong. But there are players, Will, Jack, Eric, who would be competitive PPA players. And
Absolutely.
I still think they're actually undervalued compared to PPA players.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Will and Jack on PPA full time. I mean, I'd love it. They belong there. I wish it was there. I understand there's contract issues that get in the way. Unfortunate, but as a fan, I want to see the best all play against each other.
All right, so we're gonna skip upset of the year. You guys can go vote on that on your own. What do you got for best on-air personality? You got snubbed on this one, man. You got Matt Manassi, Cameron
Obviously.
Blackwood, Dave Fleming, Mish Mahone, and Adam Stone.
You know, I nothing bad to say about anybody. I'd probably say that I think Matt gets overlooked some. I think Matt's very steady in what he does. I would kind of vote for him, just sort of a vote for somebody I think gets overlooked.
I would normally say Adam Stone. I think Adam has great. I'm putting him number two. He has great insights, got good humor and stuff. I'm going with Matt as well because he started asking some questions that nobody else wanted to touch. He started not being the good guy, right? And I appreciate that because he's trying to change the sport. He's asking hard questions of people and calling things like it is, and I appreciate that. He gets some hate
Mhm.
for it, but sometimes he deserves it, maybe. But yeah, I like it. He calls it like it is.
Oh no, I'm with you. I mean, you may remember it from the time that we did some commentary together. When I get the privilege of doing some commentary with you, with Anna Bright or whatever, I want to ask you something that if I'm sitting there at home listening to it, what do I want to hear you talk about? And so I try to come up with some not necessarily tough questions, but something to make you think. I asked you, I think I asked you one of my favorites about who Ben's not going to be the number one player forever. Who's going to be the next number one player? Things like that. Try to make you think, hopefully at least a little bit.
Um, Next up, we got the best pickleball podcast. We've got the Pickle Pod as the only option. So we've got the Pickle Pod, King of the Court, Sorry Not Sorry, Pickleball Studio, Tennis Sucks, Jump and Q, and other. Obviously, it's the Pickle Pod. We don't need to go through this one. Um, if I had to vote for a second place, I like what Tyler and Jimmy do. I think that they're more on a little bit of the gossip side, which I'm not a huge fan of. Same with Chris Kelly to a certain extent. Tennis sucks. I'm gonna go with tennis sucks. Travis says his unfiltered opinions. I like that.
Yes, that's who I was going to pick because, it is hard for you, for Tyler. Um, every week you got to see the rest of those guys. So, to the extent that you've got some inside information that's maybe on what people would think is kind of on the negative side, what do you do with it? Right? Do you really want to go on air and say, um, whatever it might be, X and Y have been playing together, but X hates Y's guts or something, or I heard X and Y having a big argument or something. Do you really want to go on air and do that? So I think it is hard for the pros that have pods to be out there. to have a hot take uh, to say something. But Travis, I think, comes the closest. So I'd give him some credit there. Got to give credit and a shout out to Jimmy Miller for prediction of the year, if you remember. Jessie Irvin's done. She's a horrible player, never going to win anything again. 2 days later, she's hey, I got a gold medal. So
Oh
shout
yeah,
out to Dean for that.
we still have to do our debate between you and Jimmy at some point. It got to the end of the year and it's just tough. But yeah, I mean, like having to see everybody week by week is one thing. I think what Thomas and I try to do is like, and what I try to do is I am not a journalist. I'm not breaking any new information. I'm going to comment on information that's out there, and I'm going to give an opinion. You don't like it, but I can sleep with myself at night. It's not a big deal to me. If you don't like my opinion, that's fine. That can be it. And try to take that one step further. So next up, we've got. We'll skip through a couple of these. We got best YouTube content creator, best Instagram content creator,
Pickleball
best
memes.
Pickleball memes. Yep, they're up there. Best on-court antics. You've got Hayden Patrickman, Matt Wright, Kate Fahey, Riley Newman, and Christian Alshon. I know you're voting for Matt, but second place. Who's your best on-court antics?
I'm voting for somebody who's not even listed. I'm voting for Sock.
All right, yeah, I can see that.
Sock is still probably my favorite player to watch when I go to a tournament. And I mean, it has to do with the way he plays, but it also has to do with just he has obvious fun out there and obviously enjoying himself. But he's maybe it's because of his tennis background and he's played in front of 30,000 people at Wimbledon, so he's used to the crowd. He plays to the crowd a little bit. He chirps, but as he may have seen from things I've written, I have a big difference in what I call positive chirping, which Sock does, versus negative chirping, where it's the negative chirping just designed to irritate your opponent, which I would love to see PPA crack down on and get rid of. But I
You
love
gotta let boys be boys.
the fun to an extent. I mean, one of my predictions for next year is that there's going to be a physical altercation from it. And we came close a tournament or two ago, and I think I would like to see PPA strongly come down on that. You can't have that.
Yeah. Or or
Or
or you just let him duke it out, and you can give him like a penalty or something. Why not? Why aren't we hockey? Why aren't we hockey? There's space for it in hockey.
well, I don't know. Is that the way you want to publicize your sport, though? When it comes to hockey, I always wish they just outlaw fighting. I mean, they outlaw fighting in the NFL.
Yeah, that's fair.
NFL is
Yeah, I
awfully
mean
popular.
well, let's just say I'm not getting any physical altercations. I'll get in plenty of verbal altercations. Nothing physical for me.
Well, you're not chirping like in the negative way that some players do.
I guess I kind of say it with a smile on my face and not particularly loud. So uh, I get away with it for the most part. But I'm pretty vocal out there. Um, I'm going right in vote as well. I gotta go Rafa Hewitt. He's always getting into something. Uh,
He is fun
yeah,
to watch.
yeah. So we got best dressed: Paris, Travis, Tyra, Tyson, and Jaume. I'm going with my boy Travis. I like those Sunday Springer shirts.
uh, I'd have to put him as worst dressed if
Yeah.
that was a category. I'll go Tyra on that one.
Yeah. I mean, let's do one more. There's a few more out there, but we won't go through every single one of them. Let's go for the best beef. These are kind of funny. We've got Collin Jones versus the net cord, grandstand court versus high frame rates, Elise Jones versus standing upright, John's Bros versus the Vulcan ball, and Rachel Rohrabacher's Come On versus pickleball noise complaints.
Ooh, some tough ones there. Tough ones. I'm going Collin in the net cord though.
I'm going Collin in the ball because like the ball is completely fine at this point. It's like Yakko's dead, but it's the best ball we've played with. So I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah, I love the Vulcan ball. I said that many months ago. Version 1 had its issues, but as soon as version 2 came out, I said this is the best ball ever.
Yeah, it
I'll
goes too
stand by
dead.
that.
Like you have to switch it out, but like for its lifetime, which is probably about a game, like it's around pretty true to ball.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you guys switch it every game.
exactly. Yeah. So like rec play, we use a lot of them and they're expensive, but oh well, we do this for our gym. So
Well, Vulcan does have to cover that cost.
yeah, no shit, no shit. All right. So you also recently published your predictions for 2025. Um, you have 25 predictions. We're not going to go through all 25 because this would be a 3-hour long podcast. What do you feel are some of your more controversial takes? And let's start with one that people are going to appreciate knowing you. Many Wright wins no medals in 2020, less than John's partners. Let's hear it. Let's hear what you think about that one.
Well, why don't we start with whether you agree or disagree with each one? You taking the over or
I
the under?
I disagree with Matt Wright winning no medals because I think that this year we saw so many different men's players win medals, and you mentioned like if he's primarily playing with Ignatovic, yeah, they're probably not going to medal super consistently, but also James can still have days where he's the best player. So like days, matches, all it takes is one run over the course of 26 tournaments and one decent run in a tournament where you like a Milwaukee Open where not all the
Mhm.
players are there to win a medal. So like if you were to say Wright is a regular medal contender, I'd say yes. But but to say no medals, I would say statistically he's probably due for a couple of medals. So I'm gonna disagree with you that one.
Well, with the 25, they are in different categories where some of them are, 90% confidence. Some of them are more the hot take, the wild prediction, 10% likelihood of coming true. That one, if I was honestly going to set an over under on medals for him for 2025, I'd probably set it at 2.5.
That's
I'd
exactly where I
probably
was thinking. 2.5 medals is the over under.
I'd probably be willing to be the bookie on 2.5. I wouldn't be willing to be the bookie on point 0.5, but I'd be willing to be the bookie on 2.5.
You need
And
some
at 2
odds
point,
at 0.5.
yeah, and at 2.5, I probably would take the under in that I think you're right. I wouldn't say it's a fluke to get a bronze medal, but there's clearly tournaments where the field is up here, and there's tournaments where the field is down here. The year goes on, people get injured. You've got a tournament, maybe it's in a cold weather city indoors, and Ben doesn't like to play indoors, and the field is you lose the top heavy power, and so getting a bronze medal in that tournament is the equivalent of finishing about eighth in the strongest tournament. So I agree with you that there's a chance of that, but I would say he's not going to win a medal in singles, obviously. I don't think he wins. I'll take the over under in mixed at point 0.5 and bet the under. He's not winning one in mixed. And I would say that even the fluky ones that you want to talk about, he's not winning a medal in mixed. And men's, um, we'll see what kind of partners he gets. Um, the PPA finals, he and Ignatovic got double pickled by McGuffin and Diascu.
Yeah, I watched that. That was a beat down.
Double pickle.
What's the stem of the so like what's the lore behind the Kloss versus Matt Wright deal? Like what is that? Tell us about that.
I can tell you exactly where it comes from. I wrote the first thing that sort of got me noticed was I did a pickleball forum note where I said I predict Riley Newman and Matt Wright will break up, and even though Riley's a good friend of mine, I had zero inside information on that. Zero. It was pure observation. Everybody was against me. I got called all kinds of names. The trolls came out of everywhere, and it was totally ridiculous. Lucy came after me, and Matt was mad. And then, 3 weeks later or something, Riley does his Instagram announcement saying he's breaking up with them. And I found Riley after that. And I said, dude, be honest with me. I said, did what I write have any influence on you? And he looked at me, and I could tell I could tell he thought he was giving me the wrong answer. And he said, I have to be honest with you, Jim. He said it had zero effect on me. And because he thought he was, I think he thought he was putting me down to say that. And I said, perfect answer. That's what I thought. I thought it had zero influence on you. So it was exactly what I wanted him to say. It's exactly what I expected. But Matt took it that somehow I was the one that made Riley dump him. And the reason I said it is he's been great. You can't deny it. I always say he always overlooks that I say he's had a great career, that he's had a Hall of Fame career, that it's amazing how good he is at his age. But Father Time is undefeated, and he is at the level where even Tom Brady, it wasn't Tom Brady his last year. And I look at Matt, and his overall skill level is down. His athleticism is um, is the weakest of any player on tour. He's a good athlete for his age, but he athletically he's the worst athlete on the PPA tour. He can get lobbed to death. And what I saw, especially when McGuffin and Dasky double pickled him, is he's lost what he had, which was the hands. They drove it at him, and his backhand. You can drive it at his backhand very successfully now. And if people watch that match and take notes on it, I think it gave him. You drive it at his backhand and you lob him, and he's in a lot of trouble when you do that. And so I think his level of partners that he's going to get is going to start to go downhill. I think he got somebody pretty good for the Masters, but um, if other people are watching him, they'll see that his skill level has dropped. And I did have another top pro coming to me.
I do think that one
Tell me the
was a
same
little bit
thing.
of an outlier. The finals, I saw the
Maybe.
entire deal. It was just like they looked defeated in that last before in that match that they played before anything happened. I mean, like maybe it's
Yeah.
my own anecdotal experience too, but like I feel like Matt for me is actually one of the more difficult people to hit an outright drive at. For me, I have a good success actually getting it to dip to him before he gets to the kitchen because he's slow to the line.
Yeah.
But like at the
Definitely.
line, he's one of the harder people for me to drive at.
Well, again, it's all relative. He used to be right at the top, and that was his thing. That's what kept him competitive, was some abilities to counter. Um, but if we know his weaknesses, we know the relative lack of athleticism, we know the ability to drive him when he's on the move, we know the ability to lob him, we know that he's not very good at speed ups. If he starts to lose though what he is good at, the overall level drops. But it's not personal. It was never personal for me at all with him. It's just he just did not. He was not happy with me calling him relatively unathletic.
He's
Wasn't
yeah,
personal
he's
though. It's
not
still not
exactly.
personal.
I mean, it's again calling a spade a spade. I'd say it's a Matt. Matt's not exactly peak male performance right there. Then again, neither am I. Look at me. So,
Well, it's all relative. He's what now? 47. He's playing against some people. What's Tardio? 19. None of
I
us
don't
at
know, but Matt's at
47 are
least like
this.
100. So he waddles around like it.
But no, we'll we'll see,
Different. So
we'll
we're
see
at
on we'll
least
see.
one.
All right. I'm sure this guarantees that if he does win a medal, that I'll get a shout out in the interview.
That's funny. Well, actually, Jim, any of these other ones that you want to run through, or do we not want
Yeah,
to
I actually
spoil it?
marked down a few where I was interested in what you thought too. Um, Jack Sock or Donald Young?
Donald Young. Donald Young is grinding. I don't think Jack Sock is.
Okay. Yeah, I got Jack Sock as the better player than I got Donald Young as the better player than Jack Sock this year. But I don't think the public sees that at all.
No, I mean Jack has had better partnerships. Jack is the one that's put on stream more frequently. I don't think Donald was. I don't know if he was even fully signed at the beginning of the year, but he just wasn't getting the airtime, the partners. But like he's grinding. He is like actually drilling, grinding like out there more than it seems like Jack is. I think Jack's game is taken a decent downwards trajectory, and I think that Donald is continuing to climb. So I'm betting on Donald there.
How about CJ Klinger will be considered the best lefty in the game by the end of the year?
Uh no, because I think Jack Monroe is going to be up there, but again, APP we might not see that. So considered by whom? That's a important part of
Yeah.
the question. But I could see your argument there. I mean, I think he's going to be better. He's already better than Ruff, Tyler. Who else are we competing against? Pablo. He's probably more consistent than Pablo. Pablo has gotten some medals, a decent amount of medals this year, but I don't think that's a crazy. I don't think that's crazy. Who else are we talking about other than who's he competing?
Augie.
Love
Augie.
Augie.
I think with Monroe, well, CJ and Jack will both have kind of the same issue of the visibility thing. If neither of them can play MLP, if they spend most of their time on APP, um, it's hard to have the same visibility. From what little I know, I think CJ's got a little bit more room to potentially play some PPAs and/or MLP than Jack does.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Without going into like contract details, it seems like CJ is making more of an effort to be at PPAs
Yeah.
than Jack.
How about here's one that's a controversial one is how about Staksrud dumps Rohrabacher and picks up Fahey?
Interesting.
And I'll tell you why is I think Fetty has shown that he really prioritizes winning. And I don't say that in any negative way at all. I think his breakup with Tejas. You know, to my understanding, they're still good friends, but Fetty probably proved right on that. And I have a high opinion of Tejas as a player, but I think Fetty's the results show with Hayden that was probably the right move. Rohrabacher, I've just been waiting for Staksrud and Rohrabacher to really break out and make some finals, win some golds even, but be a consistent semifinalist. And they're struggling with a lot of sort of round of 16 quarterfinal type finishes. And I think Fetty's going to look for something greener to me, and I think Fahey's the up and comer.
Yeah, this is maybe second half of the year. I mean, I think on paper, I really like the Fed and Rachel combo. It just for whatever reason, like you mentioned, hasn't panned out. I could see him trying, maybe Catherine. We don't know what her partnership situation is going to be. Um, Edda, I think, is playing a very good mix and just playing pretty well all around, but she obviously had certain health issues. But those as the other possibilities. I
Also,
don't
you'll give
know.
me the first part. You'll give me the first part that Fetty dumps Rachel at some point.
I'll give you the first part. I think
All
that they
right.
haven't had the success that either of them were hoping for. Just seems like a strange style mismatch, I suppose. But for Kate, uh, I don't. I think it'll be somebody other than Kate before Kate. I could see Kate by the end of the
Could
year,
be.
but I think there'll be a potentially like a stepping stone there.
But that's kind of what I mean for. I don't see the breakup in the first half of the year. I see the breakup toward the end of the year where Fetty just says, "Man, it's been 6 months of 2025 and we just haven't done it. I'm going elsewhere." And I think by then Kate will have made a move forward. It's always interesting when you're so right to say Kate's real strength has been singles. But what I always look at is I'm always looking at singles to see who the next player is because players tend to have their first success at singles. And what I want to do is watch the singles game and see, do they exhibit double skills in the singles game? That's why I'm big on Noah Cliff. Is I saw Noah play singles against McGuffin in Phoenix early in the year, and when he was completely unknown, and I said, "Wow, he's hitting cut volleys and drop shots and playing cat and mouse. That's a guy who's got double skills." And I think Kate has shown double skills in her singles matches that give me reason to think she's going to improve. But
No, yeah, I mean,
you
she's
know,
done well
we'll
with
see.
Anna Bray. She's rock solid on that when she's playing a Collin-ish role, right? She's not playing more than a third of the court, but even then, when you're getting isolated like that, it's not an easy role, and she filled that role well. It'll be different when she's gonna play 50-50, right? So
We'll see.
uh,
Who's the second? I get to ask a question or two. Who's the second best women's player
yeah, that is
now?
a good
And
question.
and who will be the second best at the end of this year?
I
I've
think
got I-
this. Oh, go ahead.
I've got Anna as number two now, and I've got Georgia as number two at the end of the year.
I've got Anna as clear number two right now, and I could not tell you who it's gonna be. I mean, I think you have. I have reason to believe. I think Catherine is gonna have a resurgence this year. I think. I think with some of the paddle stuff coming around and Selkirk trying to add pop to their paddle, I think when Catherine gets a paddle that can get her on a level playing field, I think that'll be very good for her. I mean, I think Rachel has still continued to get better. You can't say that Anna has just carried that team to winning with AL over AL and Catherine by herself. So I mean, I'd put Catherine, Rachel, and Georgia, and Edda as well, as Edda can get the health stuff figured out. I'd put all of them in there. And
Speaking of Edda, what about I didn't have this as a prediction, but I could see it definitely is. What about Edda finding a new women's doubles partner?
I think that they probably need to. Obviously they're good friends. They just have, for whatever reason, seemingly again, like Fed and Rachel, not had great success, even though they have in the past, and they're both very good players. I think Megan is playing very well as well. Every time,
Lately.
every time I've played her recently, like yeah, she's
Yeah.
kicked the shit out of me. Oh, so yeah,
Yeah,
that's just one thing that they don't seem to fully mesh.
mhm,
I think Edda playing with a Viv David would be phenomenal. Viv being able to just be rock solid on the right,
mhm,
Edda playing a left there. I think that'd be a good partnership that I'd like to see.
mhm.
And you're
Yeah, I mean,
level
this.
on Viv David in your predictions, but again, she's been somebody who has had some partnership issues as well.
Mhm.
Hasn't had the top tier partner. I still think that she's a absolutely about as rock solid of a right as you're going to get in women's doubles.
I think I forget exactly where I had her ranked. I didn't have her. It's not like I had her that low. I had her in my top 20. But
Yeah, I've got it up right now. You had her at 15 behind
15. Yeah.
Jesse and
I'll stick with the Mari one. Jesse had a better year than I think people sort of realize. She had a sneaky good year. I think Jesse showed me a little bit of something that Vivian did not, which was adaptability to the new game. I think Jesse showed not a lot of offense, but a recognition of a need to supply some offense, and she did a better job. Viv has not shown me yet the ability to supply that offense that it's not a ton of offense, but you got to supply some offense off that right hand side.
it's not a ton, but it's 25 to 33% more than last year, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not quite seen it from her. How
All
about
right.
Hunter Johnson will be regarded as the number one singles player.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, Hunter's got the game. He's got the athleticism. He's got the all court game. He's lanky and nobody spanks a forehand like him. Um, you know, I could see it. I think we'll end the year with Federico being the best player on an average day, but several players having the ability to beat him. Kind of the position I feel like Ben is in right now. So on average, Federico is the best, but I think that Hunter is a player that's going to give Federico a lot of good matches next year as well.
Well, will Fetty finally beat Ben this year? You know?
I mean, it's just like that is a weird one. Fed beats every single player but Ben. Ben can lose to anybody but Ben.
Yeah. Is that I just wonder if it's at some point it's gotta get in your head, you know?
Yeah, possibly, but it also sometimes just matchup stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, Ben covers the passes very, very well, and he's very good at the cat and mouse game. Obviously, Fed is as well, but I think Ben does a really good job of neutralizing Fed's biggest strengths.
Yeah. I mean, still for me, when people say Fetty is the best singles player, to me, you've Ben is right up there, and unless Fetty can beat him, I'm not ranking him ahead of Ben. You gotta beat him. To be the
I
champ, you
am
gotta beat the champ.
for consistency's sake. Like Fed is meddling every single time.
Absolutely.
Ben might beat Fed more, but he also loses to everybody else more than Fed.
Absolutely. Well, Fetty's better against the power players. Ben is more prone to losing to the power players. So Ben's going to get knocked out in the round of 16 or even round of 32 every once in a while, and Fetty usually is not. But sorry, Fetty, I love you, but you got to beat Ben.
Yeah.
To be number one,
All
you
right,
got to beat
Jim.
him.
Well, we appreciate it. Where can people
Yeah.
where's the best place to follow you? Stay up to date with what you're doing.
Well, check out pickleball.com. You know, it's TPA is behind that site and has been growing it. Hannah John's behind it, doing a great job trying to grow that and always adding things. And hope to see you for some commentary at. We've got some California tournaments coming up, some Arizona tournaments, so I should be out there. And then there's always dropping things on Pickleball Forum every once in a while. Great site there for everybody to see. And finally, pickleball_Jim on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days. But always love to hear from people just like you. Just love to talk pickleball. Nothing like a good pickleball discussion.
Oh
Appreciate your
yeah,
time today.
and Jim gets involved. He gets the trenches and the commentary, which I appreciate. I don't typically do, but I do think it's good for people to hear these opinions. I think when stuff it's like what we used to get taught in middle school. When you send something in text, there's no tone behind it, right? And so being able to see you on video and talk through some of this stuff, I think is good for a lot of people who see your what they might consider to be harsh takes, but when they hear you and see you talk about it, like it's okay. Well, that's reasonable. That makes sense. So I think this is good. And don't stop the hot takes, Jim. We appreciate it.
well,
Gives us
well,
something to talk about.
they're always said with a smile. If people would kind of imply the smile all the time for what they see in writing, it would go a long way. But again, great talking to you. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. And guys, make sure to go vote in the Dink Awards. There's real money behind it. So yeah, that is at dink.com, I think. I should probably have known
Yeah,
that before.
especially
It's
voting for
not,
PicklePod. Got to vote for PicklePod.
especially voting for Pickleball. Dink Pickleball, guys. Dinkpickleball.com. But if you Google the Dink, we're the first thing. Yeah, so make sure to check that out. It's a cool award. We'd love to hear from you guys as well. So, Jim, till next time, dude. Pickleball.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, rather had fun.